I think we're live now. All right, guys.
Cool.
Just wanted to. I know we were just live, but we wanted to touch base. RJ Bond does have some breaking news. We have a document up for you, and I'll go ahead and let RJ take the floor.
Yeah, so when I was just checking like I normally do when things come through, updates on cases and stuff like that come through, I put a tickler in there to check on them and stuff like that, and we just got kind of a big drop right now. Essentially, oh no, I gotta, well, I can't even look at the ad myself. I gotta wait for a freaking YouTube ad. There it is. All
Hey,
right,
at
here's the
least they're
news, kids.
running ads. Damn it.
Yeah, well, here's the news, kids. Uh, the federal government is giving Reggie Wright Jr. back his seized house. Reggie Wright Jr.'s got $1 million house in Corona, California. We blacked out the address because that's the people we are. We don't do that to others. And we blacked out the address, even if it's a public document. But the U.S. Attorney's Office now has decided to release the Liz Pendens lien, which is a seizure lien that they put on a house when they intend to take it. And they are no longer interested. The federal government is no longer interested in seizing Reggie Wright Jr.'s house. They have given it back to him, essentially. Normally, that's kind of unheard of because when the federal government seizes things, they seize it. That's it. If it had been you or me or anybody else and the federal government had seized our truck or our cars, money, anything like that, it's gone, done, gone. So, you don't have to be a weatherman to look out the window and see the clouds and think it might rain. I'm thinking that, between Reggie Wright Sr. asking for accommodations now and the sealed motion from the U.S. Attorney's Office, and suddenly Reggie Wright Jr. is getting his house given back to him. And then on the other side of the fence, Toylan Kelly is being indicted for selling a video to put pressure on Suge. A lot of this shit's happening all at one time. So I want to make sure that we get the news out about it, get the drop on it. It is very suspicious, and it's very suspicious. Even if Suge had nothing to do with this at all, it's very suspicious that the U.S. Attorney's Office now is giving back Reggie Wright Jr. the house. I'm not sure under what grounds that they've done it, but again, they're not saying anything. They just arbitrarily just dropped that Liz Pendens release on there, and that's it. So, we don't have any more information on it than that. And, at Holiday Asia, I would suggest they're cooperating, and that's why they're getting their things back, because that would have to be a condition of that. The federal government usually doesn't come in and seize thing and then give it back. I mean, how many times have you seen the federal government give anything back, Jess?
Well, I have some anecdotal evidence. I know someone who was caught with a small amount of marijuana, but they seized his vehicle. He never got his vehicle back.
Right.
Once he took a conviction, that seizure was as good as gold. So what this is saying to me, I am speculating, but what this is saying to me that it looks like there will not be a major conviction for Wright.
Yeah.
And if there is, they're pulling the house out of the scenario right now, which is indication of a deal being struck.
Yeah. Yeezy. How does Reggie own $1 million home to begin with? Yeah. Well, that's the case. Reggie had ownership of Suge Knight's interest in the Wilshire property, the Death Row Wilshire headquarters building in downtown LA, that was worth about $8 million at the time, and it was right about that time that Reggie sold the property there, that he bought that house, and he bought it through a real estate broker to have it built on that property. So it's definitely no. He didn't steal money from Death Row. What he did was he leveraged the Death Row property, whether or not he's collecting rents. I mean, Suge Knight signed the property over Reggie Wright. If you got an $8 million piece of property that you own outright, somebody will give you a loan to build $1 million piece of property someplace else because you're securing it with the deed from that $8 million property. When Reggie Wright sold the $8 million property, he put the house into his girlfriend, now wife's name, so that nobody could come after him for having assets. And of course, everybody does that who's stand up and legitimate. They put everything into their girlfriend's name, right? That's what you do when you're legitimate, and you don't want anybody to know you have assets. And so ultimately, that's how that went, and that house stayed in the girlfriend's name up until about a couple of years ago. They wanted to refinance it, and then they went ahead and refinanced it, and they put it in his name. But that's the first time that house has ever been in his name.
Now,
So,
RJ, they can do that forever, right? Once you have equity in the house, you can just, and it's $1 million house, you can take loans on that house for the rest of your life. Am I mistaken?
well, if it's paid off, it's not all leveraged. I mean, he's got some loans against it right now, but at the same time, they can if you've got equity in your property, that's like having money in the bank. Somebody will loan it to you because they're going to loan you 100 grand, 200 grand on $1 million property. If they have to actually foreclose and sell that property, they'll get at least 750 for it, so they get more of their money back.
Well, I'm going to do my Johnny Carson real quick, and I'm going to make a prediction that when Reggie Wright turns state's evidence, we'll start to hear from Greg Kading again.
Well, yeah, because Reggie has got a couple things going on. He's trying to save his house, trying to save his family situation, trying to get by without an indictment, and he wants to be back on that Greg Kading bandwagon, like with that Oxygen special. He wants to be on that money train that they're riding all the way to Liarland. So, hopefully, that'll be a something that the justice system will prevail. Hopefully, he'll get some time for doing the crimes that he's been accused of doing. If they have a case. If they don't have a case, then they don't have a case. But the fact that they're already within months after seizing his house, already giving back the house. I think that there's definitely a deal made there, because the federal government just does not give property back. They just don't do it.
I'm going to speak on a rumor, and this is rumor. I want to let everybody know right up front. I'm responding to a comment that said Suge Knight has a lot of money, but he's hiding it. I have been told by a source that you've seen on my channel that the bail amount was never the problem. The money had to be vetted through the court system, and that was the problem. Had the money not need to be vetted through LA Superior Court, I believe, Suge Knight would be on bail already. Now that is a rumor that I heard. I cannot.
Yeah, because they always want to know where it comes from. They want traceability. They want to know where every dime in your bail comes from, because that helps them know whether or not it was gotten legally or not. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, okay.
I'm just riding out the breaking news with you. So all in the course of a 24-hour period, we've got Toy Lynn Kelly coming up on charges. We have Reggie Wright Jr.'s house being reinstated to him or not being seized by the federal government. We've got a lot of things in motion, and it appears to me that we're going to have some big news soon. Someone's rolling on someone.
Yeah, I think, by the way, I did see the Oxygen special, just on a quick note, because people have asked about it. I have seen the Oxygen special. It was a 2-hour, what they call a loss leader. They spent some money on it, probably 50, 60 grand on making the documentary. They didn't pay half the people anything for it, and there wasn't really much in the way of recreation. So it was very cheaply made. And they used that as a way to attract the Tupac and Biggie crowd on a special that has absolutely no content in it, but they know if they put the words Tupac out there and they advertise it, they're getting the exact crowd. And by the way, that's the crowd that Greg Kading wants to watch his new show called Unsolved on the USA Network. And that's why they do it. They put it out there. They put a show out there hoping to get the Tupac fans to join in. And, 2 hours later, after they've run 4 ads for Greg Kading's show, everybody realized they got hoodwinked. Okay. And ultimately, that's what it was. It was a loss leader for it. There was no content in it. There was a bunch of stuff that was said that just makes, is kind of beyond belief. And a bunch of accounting of events happened by people that were further removed from it than I was. At least I knew Frank Alexander. Who the fuck did Touré or Toupee or whatever the fuck his name is, Toupee? Who did he know? He interviewed some people. Who did he know? Who did he have a relationship with? Nobody. The other dude that they interviewed that was a writer, who did he have a relationship with? Nobody. These are the Kathy Scotts of the world. That's why she was on the show. Take people who actually had absolutely no inside information about everything, make a documentary about it, run a bunch of ads for Greg Kading, because now you've hooked the Tupac fans into seeing it. You can run a show, and hopefully they'll be interested in that show as well. Pure marketing move. They call it a loss leader because it's actually, they take a loss knowing they're not going to make any money on the deal, and they put it out as an advertising thing. So,
and he's reaching out to the and I don't mean to be offensive, but he's reaching out to the housewife audience. That's why they would air it on Oxygen. And one thing, I streamed the whole program for this audience here, and one thing that is noticeable if you watch the Oxygen documentary, is they get a lot of leeway to tell a lot of half truths and omit a lot of information, because basically it's a Tupac case for dummies that they're pandering to the housewife on Oxygen, your typical Oxygen viewer. No offense to anybody that watches Oxygen, but it's mostly, you know, geared towards women. And to tell you what, that is key, because like RJ said, they want to gear the new USA Unsolved to that audience because it has Josh Duhamel in it. That is the appeal. So that is the lane that they're trying to go in. When they can't find the mainstream lane, they will pander to a certain demographic in order to make a successful TV show, and be damned with the truth.
Hey, Asia, is that article in the Sun, did that come out like today or yesterday? Can you tell me if that just came out? I know they've been fucking great. The Sun has been great about putting out ads. What they do is they start with a little bit of a paragraph about All Eyes on Me, or start with a little paragraph about the Oxygen thing, and then all of a sudden, like, if you read past the first paragraph, it's like, but then there's this other movie called Battle for Compton, which is a great movie. You should go see it. It's great. I mean, they represent, like, no worries. Yeah. They Amazon Oxygen. They did an article. Thanks, Asia. They did a bit on that Snap show. They showed like one picture and one paragraph, and then the rest of the whole page was about Battle for Compton. So I think it was pretty funny. Let's see here.
There's a lot of conversation these days about peace and justice. If you want to be upset about having no justice and no peace, take a look at Reggie Wright Jr. This is a lesson, kiddos. As long as you rub shoulders with dirty cops, as long as you know all the judges and prosecutors, you are not going to face normal person justice. This would be a completely different scenario if it was Jesse mailing Oxycontin, heroin, and marijuana through the U.S. mail, laundering money.
Yep, and to comment on Realize, Reggie could have just proved the house wasn't bought by drug money, so they had to return it. It's not quite that easy, because you have to do what's called an unexplained wealth investigation, and that would take a long time to do, and it would tie back to Death Row Records and the sale of the building on Wilshire Boulevard. And yes, the money wasn't bought with immediate drug money, but they'd also have to look at the commingling of assets, because he definitely took money that was drug money and put it in his bank account, because the drug dealers put it in his bank account. And if that bank account went to pay the mortgage, or any mortgage payment was ever made out of that bank account, he's pretty fucked that way too. So ultimately, I realize that it's a good statement to make, but it's not always 100% true, and it's certainly not that simple. And there would have been a paper trail to follow that. This was just with no hearing, no anything. And by the way, realize the what they call that is a prove-up hearing. That if they want to have the motion, they file a motion to have the Liz Pensley released, and they prove that it wasn't, and they have to prove it in front of the judge and prove it to the state's satisfaction, or in this case to the federal government's satisfaction. And then when they do that, they say, okay, it's going. It's never usually some backdoor thing where they just suddenly release the lien, like, oh, gee, our bad. You know, it doesn't work like that.
And you got to keep in mind, the guy has not even pled guilty or not guilty yet. He's not even been arraigned.
Right. So we have that, and again, let's see here. What is somebody said something here? What is the new what now? So does this new revelation with Suge ruin his case? Well, I don't think I think Suge's got a strong case, and I think that's what the district attorney is afraid of. Honestly, I really do. I think that's what that's all about.
I believe that they're trying to basically dogpile charges on him. So if he wiggles out of the first-degree murder case that they have against him, which is completely ridiculous, but if he wiggles out of that one, they're going to make sure, okay, you wiggle out of this one, well, you threatened F. Gary Gray, or you conspired to pay off witnesses. They're going to get him on something. That's the intent.
Hey, Mike Famey, the reason that Reggie and his dad, in my opinion, and this is conjecture and it's based on what research I've done, I mean, there are people that, we call Teflon Dons, and the reason that they're Teflon Dons is because nothing sticks. Reggie Wright Sr. allegedly told the the DEA, when they showed up there with the search warrants for his house after a 4-year investigation, Reggie Wright Sr. tried to tell him that no, this was all part of a police investigation, even though he was retired. That this whole thing was a big police investigation. So, clearly they'll do or say whatever it is they got to do or say to get out of something. And I don't think that's a pattern that you just create overnight. I don't think that making a deal and being a snitch is something that you just do overnight. I think it's something that, and it may have been that they targeted this investigation. They targeted Reggie for a reason, because they wanted Reggie to snitch on somebody about something. So again, we can't say that he's actually doing it. We can't say that Reggie is actually snitching, but again, you don't need to be a weatherman to hang your head out the window and tell what it's raining.
I'm going to say it now. All signs point to snitch. Because if they're setting this up for him to actually take it to trial, then they're giving way more than they're receiving right now. And I'm telling you what, the federal government does not play that way.
Right, and Jeff, one of the things you got to realize is, they go through shit unscathed because they throw everybody else under the bus on the way. That's how, and I'm not saying them, I'm just saying people like them. That's how they do things. That's how they get away for all those years. I mean, it's kind of the Whitey Bulger thing. They get away with doing all kinds of crazy shit because they've got a Fed or they've got an investigator or somebody at the DA's office that likes them. And like Greg Kading said, he was very helpful in our investigations. Well, you got to remember something, gang. When Greg Kading, the drug enforcement cop who was working drug task force and gang task force, wasn't working murder task force. He was working a Biggie Smalls case one time. But before that, he was working as a drug enforcement officer and a drug task force, and he was working drugs when he was with that task force on Biggie Smalls, because we know that with the Keith Davis interview didn't have anything to do with Tupac. It was more about the other case, the other fella that was the drug dealer.
PCP and a man named Hawkins.
And a man named Hawkins, exactly. Thank you, Jesse. And we know that so when Reggie Wright was being extremely helpful to them, what the hell do you think Reggie Wright was being extremely helpful to a drug task force about? What do you think that help was? I'm going to go back and say it again. Reggie Wright was very helpful to a drug task force. What do you think Reggie was doing them? Going and buying them coffee? Getting them donuts maybe? That's kind of helpful. But when you want to be really helpful with drug agents, you're providing drug information. And that information doesn't just come overnight. So that's where I drop the mic. I mean, it's pretty self-evident.
Once again, thank you for coming on, RJ. Thank you for breaking the news. We're going to keep everybody posted. Sorry for the double live streams. RJ was on Pacer. He found this out. So we wanted to bring the information to you as soon as possible. So always keep it locked right here to this channel where you get the unfiltered, raw information. If you had something else to add, RJ, please go ahead. I just had dinner working up.
Everybody watching, click like right now. Click like, click like, click like, click like, click subscribe. You know the drill, peeps.
Right on. Well, thank you, RJ, and thank you, everybody out there, and we will keep you posted. Stay tuned for your #1 source for everything Tupac.